Excellent. Lina,
Hello.
good evening, I guess.
Yes, good evening,
I'm not
good
quite sure
morning.
where you're located. You're in the UK or where are you?
Yes, I'm currently in England.
Uh-huh. I'm talking today to Lina Vasquez, who is another of the many internet polyglots, and I'm very intrigued by her background. And it's sometimes watching her videos, and I've watched her videos in different languages, it's hard to tell what her native language is. So maybe,
Really?
Lina, you could yes, you could introduce yourself and then tell us what your native language is.
Well, actually, before I start, what do you think is my native language? I don't want to give it away yet.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, your name is Spanish. You sound very English. I have no idea.
Interesting, interesting. So, yes, my name is Lina Vasquez, and
Oh, maybe you're asking. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, well, sorry, what did you want to say?
Well, you know what? We'll wait. We'll save that, and I will tell you later on what I think your native language is. But tell us a little bit about your interest in languages, how you came to be interested in languages, and you have a bit of a presence on the internet and so forth, and how has all of that developed?
Interesting question. I think for me, it just boils down to the fact that I've always been, ever since I was a child, just really curious about the world. And my mum and I would travel a lot between, I'm not going to give it away yet, so we would travel between Europe and Australia. So yes, I speak English well because I would hope I speak it well. But I grew up in Australia and did all my schooling there. And I think having kind of almost lived in airports, I always say, as a child, it really exposed me to a lot of different cultures from a very young age. So I remember there's a particular story where I was at one of those McDonald's playgrounds, I guess, at the airport in Russia. And there was a young boy who kept throwing those, balls from the ball pit at me. And I said stop to him in the two languages that I knew, and none of them worked. And I went to my mum and I said, Mum, he's not responding. And my mum picked up that he was Russian, and she taught me the Russian word for stop, which is хватит, or like just to stop. And it worked. Yeah. And I think that was one of the key experiences in my life that really resonated with me. And I realized that languages really gift you almost this superpower. And with, I guess through my life as well, it's just become more and more relevant and more apparent that you really do see the world in a different, through a different lens when you speak a different language, and you build just stronger connections to people as well. And yeah, so I guess I do have an internet presence, you could say. I have a YouTube channel, or two actually, and my primary one is really just about, I think, exposing people to the joys and the lifestyle that speaking many different languages and learning many different languages, because we're always learning, that they provide you with. And the other channel is a German channel, which is called Double Deutsch, and my business partner and we teach people German through kind of comical videos and like little skits. And other than that, I also study psychotherapy. So another big love of mine is is psychology and psychotherapy and linguistics. So I think just that genuine interest in people and human nature has led me to learning all of these different languages. So in a nutshell.
Okay, now we will put,
in
a nutshell, we will put links to your various sites in the description box so that people can go there and get to know you better. One of the things that I sometimes think about is, the idea of speaking foreign languages is very attractive. The idea of being able to say something to a boy in an airport in Russia or, whatever it might be, you're in the souk in Fez, Morocco, and you can actually communicate. All of this is very attractive, and I agree with you that it gives you a sense of power, but it is also a lot of work. You have to put in the time. It's not necessarily difficult work, but it requires a lot of time. And at times you have to keep on reminding yourself of the rewards, because at times it seems like an effort. So how do you deal with this issue? How do you keep yourself going on task? Well, I'll step back. Which languages do you speak? Which languages are you interested in learning?
Oh, well, I feel like I would say I would love to learn every single language, but
Right.
I speak English, German, Spanish, French, Latvian, Portuguese, Italian, and Russian, all to various degrees. And I've learned a couple of languages that I would really like to get back into. So I kind of started studying ones like Swedish and Japanese. I recently touched on Korean, so I think Korean's going to be my next language.
Right.
So how do I keep myself going? To be honest, I think there are many different phases, and sometimes I feel like it's a very complex question, because for each individual is going to be very different. But for me, I think I've tried my best to build a life around languages. So if there's one thing I was always certain about, it was I want languages and different and speaking different languages to be an integral part of what I do. So I think habits are very important. So I try and have different habits that I build up for different languages. So for example, I love reading, and I'll always make sure that at least once a week I read something in the different languages, particularly the ones that I'm fluent in, so that it doesn't drop a level, if you know what I mean, if we speak in levels. But I think, to be very honest with you, I also go through phases. Like at different times of my life, for example, when I studied at university and I studied languages, they were part of my life every single day. And then obviously coming out of an educational scenario, you yourself kind of have to take the initiative to implement or keep those languages going. So I also have recently gotten a teacher for Russian and Portuguese, because I realized, okay, as much as I love to think of myself as a superwoman, you do need that kind of external push in anything really, to keep you growing as a person and in your skill set.
Okay. No, it's interesting, because I struggle with it right now. I've assigned myself the difficult task. By the way, I think I have a hint as to what your native language is, but I'll say that later on.
Okay.
So right now I've decided, I'm going to learn 3 languages at the same time. And I'm going to do them every day. So that's Persian, Arabic, and Turkish. So there are days when, geez, and of course, when you're doing 3 a day, and I'm not sure it was a wise thing to do, I decided to do it.
Why
and
not?
I'm sort of, I'm reluctant to give in and say, because it's so much slower. If you're doing 3 a day, you're not really making that much progress in any one of them. Although there are times, like this morning I was listening to Farsi and I thought I heard it a lot better, clearer, more clearly than ever before. So there is, to some extent, the idea of doing 3 languages at once makes you a little more observant. You notice things a little better, but of course you aren't learning as quickly. So I'm sometimes a little discouraged, and then of course I can't stop because I've told everyone I'm going to do this, so I can't quit, But of course, ultimately, to be able to understand these languages is tremendously, attractive. So I agree with you. You have to get some habits. So one of the things I've said is I have to, like on Link, I have to create 100 links a day in each language. So that's automatically, it's a stupid task. It's like taking out the garbage once a week. I just have to do it.
Well, that's the thing.
And so you have these tasks. Yeah.
No, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but I think that's a really key point. Is a lot of people, I think they have a bit of a false idea as to what motivation is, or I think there's this misconception that polyglots are always motivated. We're not.
Right.
There are literally, it's one of those things. I think for me, it comes it's maybe a little bit of an ego thing, to be honest, where I don't want to ever fail in something, especially when I know, I want to just always do my best in something. And I might take a break. For example, there was a phase I had for French and other languages at times where I was so sick of it. This is where me studying 2 languages at once also comes in. I love doing two languages at once because when one gets a bit too much, when one gets a bit too much, I have the other one to kind of compensate with. So you never really get bored. But the initial point was, people think that you're always motivated and you're not. And that's okay. So it is sometimes, you know, as much as I think we can say we love languages and we love the process of learning, it just sucks sometimes. It's just arduous, and sometimes you're doing... I remember when I was learning, particularly for German, certain grammar concepts, and it just felt like I had put in so much work and I wasn't seeing any results, but I still just kept doing the work because I knew, okay, at some point it has to get easier. It's gonna be easier.
I mean, I think this is true, and that's one of the reasons why I don't spend a lot of time trying to learn grammar, because I know that my ability to... I mean, I can read it just to be aware of what's there, and then I read it again to refresh my memory, but I know that I'm not going to master those concepts until a lot of exposure and a lot of use of the language. Whereas acquiring words, you know, that's something that's relatively easier. I kind of watch my wires here, or my microphone. So I focus on increasing my vocabulary, increasing my comprehension. And it's not perceptible, and yet after a couple of months you go back to material that you looked at 2 months earlier, and of course you understand so much more because you have more words. So that does increase. Like the more time you put in, the more words you acquire, and the more familiar you become with the language. That is not so true of trying to remember case endings in German. You can keep on looking at them, or in Russian, Slavic languages. You can keep on looking at them, and the next, and you might get them. You might have a conversation, and I'm hitting my case endings and my verbs of motion in Russian. I think I'm doing really well, and then a week later I have another conversation, and I just bomb.
Exactly.
So that's a slow process.
I think it's a slow process. Exactly. I think there's always, no matter what you learn, I think there is always a more effective way to learn it that works for you as an individual and just in general. So case endings are a great example. I'm also not the biggest fan of grammar. So with German, I did German studies at university. So obviously I went through, you know, 4 years of essay writing and everything in grammar, you know, a lot of things that you would never use. But I think the biggest thing is as well, when you don't have when you don't have that element of relevance to you and your life, you can have the best table given to you, the best, you know, color coordinated explanations, but if it doesn't just click within your mind, you're never going to learn it because you're not learning how to use it. I think at the end of the day, you know, we learn language to reproduce it and to speak it. So, I mean, not always, but primarily. We do.
Well, I don't think you have to. I think the advantage of focusing on comprehension is that not being able to nail the case endings doesn't really bother your comprehension. Because there's so much redundancy in the words. You can figure out what's going on, who's doing what to whom. But when you go to speak, of course, now there's more of a requirement to get the cases right. Not because the other person won't understand you, but it's kind of like your shirt tail hanging out, like you're exposing your weaknesses, your errors, which we don't like to do that because we're vain, you know. But you know what? We can talk, I think, for an hour or two, and we are going to have another discussion for your channel. So I thought I should wrap this up. And I'll tell you a city that I once visited, which I really enjoyed, where people speak 2 languages. I wonder if you have visited it. Riga.
I think I've been there a couple of times.
It's a lovely city, lovely old town, very friendly people, and of course it's completely bilingual.
Yeah,
or at least, let's put it this way. It's not bilingual like Montreal. It's bilingual. Everyone speaks, I wouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people speak Russian. Half the population are native speakers of Russian, but there's no evidence of Russian. It's kind of been airbrushed out of the which is, I have some sympathy for that because they did the same in Montreal. Like I grew up in an English-speaking part of Montreal. All the shops were in English, everything was in English, and now if you go there, all the shops are in French, even though the people are still largely English-speaking. So typically you have a situation where a previous sort of language injustice creates a reaction. And the reaction sometimes also has some elements of injustice. And that was the case in Quebec. but probably in the long run a good thing, at least in the case of Quebec. In other words, when I was young in Montreal, if you wanted a good job, you had to speak English, even if you were a francophone. And now people can work in French. So the so-called, somewhat unjust language laws, in fact, have re-established French as the dominant language in Quebec. At all levels. And I think that was a good thing. Mm-hmm. And I think some of the same applies perhaps in Latvia. I don't want to get involved too deeply in Latvian politics. But.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Because, yes, so Latvian was my first language, but and I was born in Riga, but it's an interesting concept for me because I spent the first 7 years of my life traveling between Latvia and Australia. So I was exposed to English basically from the age of 10 months, and so I grew up bilingual, but not with Russian. It was quite a funny story because my mother and my grandmother would speak Russian amongst themselves in order for me not to understand something, and I obviously I learned the alphabet when I was quite young, the Russian alphabet, but I actually learned Russian through my own kind of incentive, in the sense of, I remember it was a little bit, I don't know, I just said to my mum always, one day I'm going to be able to speak Russian and understand everything you're saying, and I think that was my motivation. But you're very right, when I recently went back to, I say recently, 2 years ago, but when I went back to Latvia the last time, and it was with my ex-boyfriend who was Russian, he spoke more, I think, than I did, because there is a huge Russian population, and a lot of people don't want to learn Latvian. And yes, as you said, we're not getting into politics, but it's definitely an interesting concept to discuss.
Well, that's right, and of course the problem in Latvia, unlike there's language issues everywhere.
Yeah.
Ukraine, Belgium, Catalonia, you name it, right? Quebec, wherever. But the one thing that's unique about Latvia, or the Baltic states in general, is that the total number of speakers of those languages is so small.
Exactly.
And so you can say French, okay, but there's this large French-speaking community in the world. Even Ukrainian, there's and the amazing thing in Ukraine is everybody speaks both languages. Totally. Comfortably, without hesitation, they can switch from A to B, B to A.
Yeah.
Not the case in Quebec. But Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, there's very few speakers of those languages.
That's true.
And so therefore I have great sympathy. And there's no shortage of Russian speakers. I mean, there's lots of Russians. There's no shortage.
Yeah.
Your major presence, cultural, whatever, historically, and any way you want to name it, Russia is a big language in the world.
Yeah.
So I have sympathy for the Latvians and the Lithuanians and the Estonians, or for that matter, the Quebecois, who are doing things to maintain their position as a sort of a minority.
Yeah.
And that means that sometimes they do things that may be perceived as not entirely fair to the majority, but I still support them.
I mean,
that's my position. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I understand it. I mean, at the end of the day, I think people forget that Latvia has, I think, a population of 1.8 million. That's exactly, the city I grew up in Australia has more than that. So it's, and of course there are Latvians.
And how many are native Latvian speakers?
Well, exactly. So we are a small bunch. We're a mighty bunch. But
Good. All right. Well, on that note, so I think I figured out perhaps what your native language is. Perhaps it's a mixture of English and Latvian.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to end it here. And then we're going to continue on your channel.
Exactly. So it was a pleasure.
Okay, so thank you for coming to visit my channel.
It's lovely to be here. And now we're going to see each other on my channel.